So, February 2019, the coffee we have is a Rwandan roasted by Cupping Room in Hong Kong, namely Kepo Chu, the regular appearance in WBC Coffee Roaster and Barista Champion. Let me just get that focused on the bag, because look, they even went to the trouble of doing the spot UV on the label. That's real nice. And if you haven't opened your bag yet, I highly recommend spending a little bit of time with the tab. It's so sexy. Just, isn't that nice? It's the little things. Anyway, I'm going to brew this coffee really quickly and then let it sit and brew while I talk about a few things to do with the coffee. What I've been brewing this coffee as this week and enjoying it as is full immersion. It's a pretty light Rwandan coffee and I like to get a lot of heaviness and juice out of it. So I've got my trusty $10 kettle. Reminder that you don't need fancy kettles, but they do make it nicer for you. Lazy carafe, we've got about 15 grams of coffee. Just double check. 15.4. As always, you can use any amount of coffee you like. And 15 times 15 is 225. So I'm going to chuck in 225 grams of boiling water. This particular water we're using is the Hendon recipe. If you're customizing your water, as always, if you've never customized your water before, head down to the blog and do it, because it will completely change your coffee brewing game forever. Everyone who does it wonders why they never did it before. So we've got our little carafe. I'm just going to swirl that around to make sure everything's nice and saturated. No dry bits. Smells good. And we'll leave that to sit until I clarify it in a moment. So I actually don't know when I met Capo, but my most memorable early sort of memory of him, this might be when I met him, was at the Rimini WBC, and he was about to go on to represent Hong Kong, and I'd brought with me a prototype for a new tamper that had very sharp edges, and it was still a bit risky, and I went up to a few finalists and asked them if they'd like to use this tamper in their routine, and he gave it a go, and I would like to take full credit for any success that Capo had in that competition. Mike Young, Capo's 2IC at Cupping Room at the moment, although he's probably actually really the boss, was my head judge at the 2013 WBC. So these guys are pretty close, and I always love drinking their coffee when I go through Hong Kong. It's my first or last stop in the city, and I was lucky enough on my way to London last week to run through and pick up some of these bags that were also being sent out to all of the subscribers. So it was really nice to see his cafes again. And the thing that I have always liked about Cupping Room coffees is that they're always aiming for gentleness, subtlety, softness. They're not looking for big, bold craziness. They're more looking for nuance. And I think that really shows in the, even in the interior design of their cafes and their branding. Everything they do is just really, really well put together and thought out. So I've been pestering them to be roasters for Superlatives for years now, and I'm glad that we could finally make it. So the coffee this month, as the tiny booklet attached to the bag will tell you, is a Rwandan Kanzu. So that's from Nyamasheke, which I think is in the southwest of Rwanda. And they are saying it's candied pear, hibiscus, and honeyed sweetness, which, as far as Rwandans go, sounds delightful. It's all the information's in there. I'm not going to go too deep into the technicals of the coffee right now because it's all written out for you. But I would like to talk about potato defect very briefly. It's something that comes up quite often, and a few people try to dismiss countries like Rwanda and Burundi for potato defect. But I think the stance that Cupping Room is taking, and that I think most specialty roasters should take, is one of supporting these countries through the problem rather than just eschewing their coffee, not buying it, and waiting for it to be fixed, it's better to prop up those producers and exporters and help them along in their journey to eradicating something like the potato defect. So I'm always happy to sell and distribute Rwandan and Burundi coffees for that very reason. And if anyone does get a potato defect, c'est la vie. It's just part of the process. And I haven't tasted one yet. I haven't heard any reports of them yet. And I would love to hear if anyone actually has a potato defect, because so far Cupping Room hasn't detected any during their QC of this coffee. So in other Superlatives news, we're working really hard on getting our fulfillment improved. Shipping has always been the issue for this subscription, ever since day one, since the first extremely bad first month. And it's something that's really, really hard. You can't just, upgrade shipping to a more expensive option, because the gap between registered post and courier is 5 to 10 times the expense. And to ship even just this bag of coffee to almost every destination of Superlatives, just the shipping would cost more than we're charging you for the entire month. So what I'm looking to do is to move distribution of this subscription, or move fulfillment, which is the last packaging and posting of the bag of coffee, into each individual region if possible. And America's the largest, or the USA, sorry, is the largest region. So I'm trying to get that done first, because that's going to be the biggest problem. Working through the FDA notices and registrations, because it's a different roastery every month, it's a little bit tricky. So just working out the finer details of that. We've got the fulfillment center sorted. All the ducks are being lined up, and I'm probably going to do a test run in the next few months just to make sure that nothing bad happens. But in the end, at least for the US, we'll have DHL or another courier shipping it from the roastery direct into the US, clearing through customs, straight to the fulfillment center. They'll be ready and waiting, pack the bags into envelopes, and ship them with USPS first class to the final destination. So it should halve the time that it takes to get from roastery to end destination. So please hang on if you're still waiting. Obviously, this won't be an end result for every country. It's just an absolute nightmare to try and get this done for every country. So I'll be systematically picking off the biggest countries, and perhaps even moving to a few countries where we don't have much of a presence, but there's a lot of demand, and there isn't an already existing good postal solution. And we'll just pick them off. And in the meantime, all of the other countries will be using the same system that we have been. Now, we're getting a lot of emails concerned about the tracking going through Melbourne. And the coffee doesn't go through Melbourne. It goes from the roastery to our fulfillment center in in Singapore. It used to be Hong Kong, now it's in Singapore. And that's DHL. They take the coffee, they've been pre-warned, they've already got the envelopes ready. They slide the coffee into the envelopes, seal them up, and then send them straight out, usually within 24, max 48 hours. And then the DHL network takes that to the destination country directly. Now, it might go through Germany, it might go through Hong Kong, it might go through something else, but courier networks don't have direct flights from every city to every other city. Otherwise, you might be waiting months for that plane to fill up, and then it eventually comes over to you. So if you see something in your shipping tracking details that says that your package has been through other cities, that was literally the quickest way to get it to you. And there's a whole lot of artificial intelligence involved that's way smarter than I am for all of that routing. The other thing is tracking says Melbourne as the point of departure. And that's not really true, because it doesn't. And the tracking detail will say Melbourne in the beginning. That's just where our business is located. And because we have sort of the same system each month but a different roaster, DHL doesn't change those details, so it just comes up as Melbourne, Australia. So don't fret, it doesn't get routed through that many cities. It does get routed through a few, but not that many. Other than that, we're moving into a new HQ. We've been sponging off of St. Ali down in South Melbourne and using their offices, but we're about to move up and start sharing with Kura, our sister company run by Aidan Graham. It's currently a tea studio and shop, and we're going to be moving into the back, taking over on the days that Aidan isn't running the tea shop, doing our videos in there. There's a lot more natural light. It's really pretty. Going to have a lot more videos going on, and hopefully a bit of a lab setup in the back as well. It's been a bit difficult, moving between locations, but we're almost settled, which is going to be lovely. So, this has been brewing for 9 minutes, I'm not sure, 8 minutes. I'm not too concerned. What I'm mostly concerned about is most of the sediment has dropped down to the bottom. Focus. Anyway. Most of it's dropped down, so now I'm just going to carefully decant it. Now, instead of just decanting it into a cup, I want to do one more step of filtration using an American press. The lovely folks at American Press sent me this, and they're going to be bitterly disappointed that I'm not actually using it to brew coffee like they intended the first time I post anything about it. But because we're moving office, everything's in storage, and I have minimal options for clarification of coffee grinds. So I'll just warm this guy up, tip it out into a really fancy measuring cup. I should do a video with this device because it's really well made. It's really impressive. The double-walled carafe, made of Triton, I assume it's made of Triton. The copolymer, the same one that AeroPress is made out of, is lovely, and it really does insulate. Like, you do not feel any warmth. So actually what I'm going to do is just gently decant this coffee in, trying not to disturb the grinds at the bottom. Oh, there we go. Slightly wasteful, but what are you going to do? And I'm just going to gently press this down. It's got a couple of filters in there. They're not very coarse, so this isn't going to filter everything out for me, but it's going to get the job done. And I promise American Press that I will do a video about your brewer properly soon. Now, the traditional Barista Hustle office cup is one of our cupping bowls because they're the only things we have in number that are clean. Once we move into a shop with a dishwasher and a sink, things will improve. But here we go. Let's have a taste. Yeah, they're not wrong about that pear. It's like this lovely tart stone fruit flavor, and on that sort of hibiscus end that they're talking about, it's kind of like that florality that you would get biting into a stone fruit, like a really ripe stone fruit that's kind of musky and perfumey. In terms of sugars and caramelization, it's really on the delicate, lighter end, more crystalline sugars, icing crystalline, like processed or refined sugar, rather than your heavy brown or molassesy kind of caramelization. With this brewing method in particular, even though I haven't filtered it, it's not gritty or heavy and rough at all, but it does have that nice sort of lush, cooling and almost lubricious, like slippery feeling to the mouthfeel, which I really love, especially from African coffees. And you can probably bump the strength of this coffee up a few notches and really dig into that, because it's already quite a light coffee. So, if you're into big, round, juicy flavors, then kick that up a few notches. I was using 15 grams of coffee to 225. You could reduce that amount of water, or you could increase the amount of coffee, of course, by a gram or a gram and a half to really get that heaviness. Yeah, and that pulpy fruitiness that that Mike and Capo are calling currant. I don't know. For me, it's probably more like a dried sultana or something. But fruits are fruits. We're pretty close in the spectrum of things here. That plushness and that roundness really goes towards that pectin-y sort of flavor that you would get with those sultana-y kind of grapey seeded fruits. Seeded. And it's cooling down really well, which is always a nice sign. If it cools down and starts to drift off or loses its finish, it's usually a sign that the roast is off or something's weird. So it's cooling down nicely, acidity's picking up, but it's not becoming blah. It's getting crisper and sharper, more of that citrusiness to it. So yeah, this coffee's lovely, and I'm glad we sent it around the world to everyone. As always, if you have any comments or feedback, you can email us. If you're a subscriber, we'd love to hear from you and hear about the coffees. With the shipping, as I said, it's never ending. We're always trying to improve it, and I really think that some local distribution hubs will really kick this subscription up into another notch or two coming this year. So stick with us or stay tuned because we'll be back with more coffees throughout the year. Next month is a Colombian. Get on it.